Are you being lied to? Are YouTube farmers running your life? Are the people that you see on social media giving you bad advice about farming? Guys, welcome to the Farm Channel today. I hope you're going to learn a little bit today, and I hope you're going to take this information with a grain of salt. Just like every piece of information you get from a social media type farmer, a person spreading information. Guys, we've got to sort through all the bull today, literally, and talk about ranching, farming, and what you're being sold on social media that may not necessarily be true for your property, for your farm, and it's something you've got to sort through. Stony Ridge Farm. Good morning, friends, and welcome back to the Stony Ridge Farm. All around us is a 150-acre first-generation farm project. The reason I'm talking to you today, and I don't want to put anybody down, I want you guys to learn and be educated today. This is a conversation that needed to be had probably 3 or 4 years ago, and the reason I'm talking to you about this is because recently we had to sell off about 15 animals here on the farm. We are a rotational grazing operation, an intensive rotational grazing operation here. This is a regenerative farm, meaning we don't like to bring in outside commercial fertilizers, petroleum-based fertilizers. We don't like to bring in any kind of outside resource other than carbon and hay to the farm. And I've learned a lot about this from my friends, Judy, from my friend Joel Salton, from other friends, and from watching videos just like you watch here on social media. I've learned tons, and you should be learning tons if you're considering a new farming or ranching operation just like this, or if you're considering goats, sheep, cows, pigs, gardening, whatever it is that you want to do with your property. Now, what I need to express to you guys today is that Joel Salton isn't the end-all, be-all, know everything about your operation. Nor is Judy, nor is Just a Few Acres, nor is Lumna Acres, nor is any other, or Mike from Our Wyoming Life. All these guys that are out here, they don't know everything there is to know about your particular set of situations. And when I filmed a video the other day about having to take some cows to the market, I got piles and piles of emails and messages from folks that follow Judy, that know who Joel Salton is, that are all about the Dexter cow. And I think that's Just a Few Acres farm. I don't really know all these people, but I do know Judy and Joel Salton personally. Guys, what they do on their property is going to be different from what you do. If you are sold on a particular brand of cow, whether that be a Dexter cow, whether that be the Angus cows that we have here, or whether it be a cow like Judy likes, the South Pole cow, which has better grass genetics, arguably better grass genetics for sure than our Black Angus cows, you've got to take into account what works for you, okay? So when I come out here and I teach you about what I'm doing here on the farm, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do exactly what I'm doing on the farm. And I think folks take these messages from these other YouTube farm channels and from these other folks that are in this industry, and they take everything they say as gospel, and it's not gospel, okay? What Judy does on his ranch is going to be different than what Just a Few Acres does on his farm, than what I do on my farm, than what Joel Salton does on his farm. I'm going to give you some examples. I've got a lot of comments from people telling me I need to get rid of these big Black Angus cows because they're destroying the land, they're doing this, they're tearing up everything, and that's a Judy message, and I get that message, and I love what Judy does, and I love what he has to say. He has a different situation than I have. Judy is ranching on somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 1,600 acres, 300 to 400 head of cattle. And correct me if I'm wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. But when we're talking about 400 cows on 1,600 acres, we're talking about 4 cows to the acre, right? Just do the math with me here. He's rotationally grazing, he's got stockpiled forage, he's got a plentiful supply of land. We're on a 150-acre farm out here, and the other day when I sold off cows, I had 54 cows. We have about 85 acres that is in fenced pasture with very poor soil, and what we're trying to do is build the soil here, okay? Greg Judy has a different scenario. Greg Judy promotes grass genetics. We are promoting grass genetics. We've got a South Pole bull. We're breeding in grass genetics into the farm. But what Greg Judy does is impossible for me to do. It is impossible for me to have the amount of stockpiled forage for my cattle on this very poor land. He lives in Missouri. They have topsoil in most places. We have no topsoil. We live in tobacco country here in North Carolina, and there is no topsoil. It's all in the Cape Fear River Basin, or it's in the Chesapeake Bay right now. So there's something that you have to think about where you need to be able to apply what you've learned over time from all of these people and put that into practice on your property, on your ranch or farm. Now let's move along and talk about Joel Salton. I spent a lot of time up at Polyface Farm with Joel Salton. He's only about 2.5 to 3 hours away from me. He is a mentor, as well as Greg Judy is a mentor, as well as Just a Few Acres is a mentor. All of these people are people that I follow. Gabe Brown is a mentor. If you don't know who these people are, get on there and Google. These people have knowledge, and knowledge is power, and knowledge is strength, and knowledge will help you to succeed. However, you've got to be able to sort through the knowledge. Now, I know some ranchers, especially up in New York, evidently like the Dexter breed of cow. I know what you need to think about with a black Angus cow. If we're taking our cows to the sale barn, black cows bring more money. That's it. Black cows bring more money, and until I can build a relationship with a customer base, I have to take some cows to the market. I can sell farm fresh beef, but there's not a line of customers. Even with 1 million followers here on social media, customers aren't lining up out the gates to come and buy my beef, my chicken, my pork, and my cattle. And eventually it will be beef, chicken, pork, cattle, and all sorts of products from the farm. So you got to put all this stuff into perspective, guys. What Joel Salton is doing is he brings his cows all to kind of a feedlot area, and he feeds them hay in the wintertime. While he feeds them that hay, he puts down a little corn inside the manure. So hay, manure, corn, hay, manure, corn, hay, manure, corn. Then in the springtime, he brings in pigs. He calls it the pigerator. The pigs come in, they root up, they dig out the corn, which might be sprouted and may not be sprouted. It may be fermented, it may not be fermented, but they turn the manure piles. And basically his entire process is based upon intensive rotational grazing, which is what we do here, and manure, which is what we do here. But we don't have our animals in a confined space to eat. Okay, we don't bring them into the barn. We let them roam. We let them spread that manure out for us, and we drag the pastures in the spring and in the fall, and sometimes even in the summer. We take those big old manure pats that are like this big old fescue manure pat, and we spread it all out. We put a little bit of grass seed down here on the farm, but most of the grass seed comes from unrolling hay, just like Greg Judy does. So what I'm trying to tell you guys is, if you're trying to get away from the commercial fertilizer, okay, that industry, if you're trying to get away from grains, GMOs, stuff like that, that industry, if you're trying to get away from infrastructure, meaning moving material all over your property all the time, that's what Joel Salton does. He loads up manure, puts it in the manure spreader. I'm not saying it's all the time, probably takes him about 2 days to spread all the winter manure out. I don't even know how long it takes him. But we've got to think these things through. Low infrastructure, this is what this farm is all about. Low impact, using ATVs, UTVs, smaller machines. Low infrastructure, rolling out hay bales versus a hay ring and making a big mess. Not confining our animals versus letting them roam and spread their own manure. So when you think about this, you have to take into consideration the amount of land that you have. What you're doing on an 85-acre fenced farm is going to be vastly different than what you would be doing on a 1,600-acre farm. You're not going to have the stockpile forage, that dream of having stockpiled forage all winter long and not having to feed your animals hay is just a pipe dream for a small farm like this. Also, there is a narrative being spoken about leased land. Around me, I can't lease any land. Look around the farm. We'll get you a drone shot of the farm here. There's no other cleared land around me. You can see that. There's no other cleared land around me. Cutting my own hay. Let's talk about cutting my own hay. We got a $70,000 tractor, a $40,000 hay baler, an $8,000 hay rake, a $10,000 or $12,000 hay cutter, and we're spending piles and piles of money. You cannot rob Peter to pay Paul. In other words, you can't take from the land what you don't put back. I get a lot of comments. Oh, you need to bale your own hay. You need to be cutting your own hay. You need to be doing your own hay. You gotta understand. You've got to build a foundation, a soil foundation, versus tossing out a pill on the land. And that's something that's very important to me also. And all this is brought forth by comments that I've received from a lot of people that think that everything Greg Judy does is perfect and I can do it here on my farm. And everything Joel Salton does on his farm, I can do here on my farm. And everything with a Dexter cow, I could do instead of having these Angus cows. It's different everywhere you go. My experience with commercial fertilizers is when we put down petroleum-based commercial fertilizer on the farm, we get a pow of green. Just boom, it's all green. It's insanely green. We get both weeds, what people would consider weeds is what I consider forage. We get grasses, we get all sorts of stuff. And if you look out through this pasture right here, you will see green. Cows have not been over here in about a month and a half. If you look on this pasture, you'll see green, right? This green stays green year round, and what we're trying to do is build a bed of soil and microbes and manure and carbon in the soil, not make it turn green and make it turn back brown, okay? You fertilize in March. By July, you have land that is no longer drought tolerant, okay? So we've got to think about this stuff. On smaller farms that are cutting hay and feeding their animals, they have to put down some sort of fertilizer, or they have topsoil, which we don't have here on the Stony Ridge farm. So what I wanted to do here was just get in here and ramble a little bit about what most folks seem to be doing, which is taking everything that one single person says on social media, and we are just a tiny I'd say one out of every 50,000 people that have a small farm like this, and that's my guess, one out of about every 50,000 people that have a small farm like this are posting content to educate you guys. Take what you learn with a grain of salt. Absorb the information, but get the information from multiple sources, guys. You've got to pool that information in. I don't have 1,600 acres to raise my cows. I don't have a bunch of staff here to help me like Polyface Farm does, like Greg Judy does. Greg Judy has interns, typically 1 or 2 interns that are out there helping him run that 1,600 acres, that 300 to 400 head of cattle. This is a small operation. This is not turning a huge profit. And the next video you see here on the Stony Ridge Farm channel will be the video that tells you exactly what we got for our cows at the market. When we sell a cow direct to consumer, we make about 8 to 10 times as much money. However, the customer base, the shipping, the trouble, the time, and all the work that goes into direct consumer marketing costs you money and time also. You cannot, on a farm this big, earn a profit at all with less than 50 head of cattle. That is what I have seen, and that's not counting infrastructure. That is just hay and cows moving. Most of you are looking for a 20, 50, 100, 200 acre plot of land, and you're thinking about farming as part of your retirement or you're sick of the food system and you just want something wholesome and something good. That's what we're doing here on the Stony Ridge Farm. We're showing you how it can be done without commercial chemical inputs on our property, with bringing carbon and building soil and raising high quality beef. Stay tuned for the next video. We're going to talk about how much we got for our cattle. We took 15 cows to the market about 2 weeks ago, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at the amount of money that we brought home. Enough to buy hay for this year and next year, and we'll have profit again in the fall. Guys, thank you all so very much. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you back. We'll see you next time on the Stony Ridge. Woo! Come on down. Stony Ridge, bring your wife